Let me introduce myself first. My name is Peter Lechman. I'm based in Prague, but formerly I'm from Slovakia, so I'm saying I'm Czechoslovak, so you will listen now another half an hour of the broken English in Czech and Slovak. I'm from SentinelOne. I was started in September last year. Before I was 8 years at Palo Alto Networks, so the guys before me are my good old friends, and before I was a Cisco guy. So anyhow, today I would like to talk about what we do at SentinelOne, why we think there is a time to move from the legacy vendors that are focused on the endpoint solution, and why I think the SentinelOne might be the good choice for you. So Miroslav skipped the trends. I would say I would like to mention what we see typically in most of the customers. So AV vendors, legacy AV vendors are still very much present in most of the customers in Eastern Europe. Not only, we see that customers are trying to solve the cybersecurity with adding more products, more agents, which becomes it very complex to manage. It means you need to have more people. Obviously, no one has more people. Remote work with the COVID bring a lot of also challenges, so customers start thinking maybe endpoint is important to start to fix. The users are not behind the firewall in my organization. And then obviously the cloud is the topic. We're in this transformation. I know in Eastern Europe the cloud topic is not that big, but still there are customers who are already moving to the cloud. So I think it's another topic which brings some challenges. So how we try to react, what we try to build from scratch in our product, and this is what we've done, and I will try to convince you what we've been doing here. First and most important part in SentinelOne, and the emphasis is in the automation. So how to get more, or how to solve the bigger challenges in cybersecurity with not enough people on the ground, having automated way. Second thing is autonomy. There are many solutions you hear from on the EDR, XDR, and endpoint stuff, which use some connections to cloud, to internet. You need to be connected to internet. You need to download something. You need to send a hash. You need to check something. Our way we design the product is it's autonomous. We don't rely on any cloud-based, not only signatures or any information from the cloud. So it works autonomy. If the user is on the disconnected network, you can still prevent the attacks. Correlation, it's becoming very important when you talk about the EDR or the XDR. So the correlation part means we get a lot of telemetry data, and we're trying to provide you a context, what's happening on the endpoint. For that, of course, you need to have a good engine which can correlate all the different elements on the endpoint side. Visibility, super important part. I mean, again, you cannot stop what you don't see. So again, if you want to stop attacks, you need to have the visibility across the network and the endpoint. Last piece, one agent, one platform. We don't provide you with the multiple tools, multiple consoles, unifying those consoles into one. Again, it's a very easy to use, and the feedback I have from customers, and I just spoke to one of them over here before my session, was, hey, we're really happy with you, SentinelOne, because it's easy to operate and easy to use. So where we are right now, or what we've been doing in the last 10 years, we started as a AV vendor, a next-gen AV vendor. So we never provided an AV solution. We never used the signature-based controls. The idea behind was, let's think of how to approach the endpoint security, how to use not a signature-based controls, but how to train these machine learning models, or how to train these models with the machine learning algorithms. Now everybody calls it AI, and how to put it as a part of the functionality on the agent. We have then expanded the portfolio to the EDR. So the EDR is something we are, I would say, very good today. We get a lot of telemetry data from the endpoints. We don't send any files outside of your network, so it's very important comparing to also the other vendors. And we are now entering, I would say, the XDR space. So XDR is, again, a big topic. Everybody talks about it. Nobody knows how to do it. So in the XDR, I'll show you in a couple of minutes how we're doing XDR and what are the integrations we have today. CWP, Cloud Workload Protection, I'll skip that. We are very good in providing the workload protections for cloud, obviously, and we're going now into this analytics part very soon, so you will hear a lot of cool announcements in the next 1 or 2 quarters in this analytics and automation space. So how does it look today? We are, as I said, trying to provide or endpoint security. What is the endpoint for us? It's a computer, it's a mobile phone, it's a laptop, it's a cloud workload. These are all the endpoints, okay? So don't think of it, I want to protect my computers, I want to protect my servers, my Linux servers, Windows machine, Mac OS, iOS devices on the mobile, Android. We have expanded the portfolio with the identity piece. Identity, I'll spend a little bit more time. I'll tell you what is it coming. And the last part is the incident response and MDR. These are the services that many times we provide through the partners, locally also, or us as a vendor can help you to solve this tricky incidents, and we can help you to fix that. We use the data lake, which is the data platform. I'll spend a bit more time on it. And then we're trying to ingest a lot of third-party vendors. So we're now able to ingest, and I think it's on my next slide, it's on this one. We're trying to ingest more than 60 different vendors through our marketplace. These are not any paid integrations. These are integrations that we have. We provide it as a, let's say, part of the product, part of the license. With those integrations, you can ingest our telemetry data and the logs that we have from the endpoints with all these other logs. This is not the XDR story. So I would say this is the one-way information, how to enrich the data you have. The full XDR story from our side is you can also operate those third-party vendors using SentinelOne console. And these are the integrations that we already have today with a couple of vendors like Okta, Netscope, and the others. We're going to have them with the many firewall vendors that are also presenting here. So that's something that is become a reality. How we saw the SOC evolution, again, I have many discussions, and as I said before, I was at Palo Alto Networks. We're talking about network security, how to integrate the firewalls with the SIEM. These days, many customers are saying how I should integrate my endpoints with the SIEM systems. Is the SIEM able to fix things? Not really. Can you collect all the logs and information to the SIEM to have a visibility? Yes. We're not the SIEM vendor. We're not a SOAR vendor. So SOAR have, I would say, tried to fix the SIEM problem. So how to automate things which cannot be done in the SIEM. That's why a lot of SOAR platforms have been able on the market. What I see is important. The XDR is something where you can, I'm not saying replace SIEM and the SOAR in the future. Maybe yes, in some of the use cases. But I think it's something that gives you the tool to provide an action if there is a problem. So I mentioned that we collect a large amount of different data from the endpoint. So we need to have a strong backend. At SentinelOne, we acquired a company called Skylar. Skylar was invented by the guys who invented the Google Sheets and the Google tools. This, I would say, database or this backend allows us to correlate a huge amount of data. We collect today about 5 petabytes of data on a daily basis from all the endpoints around the world. And we obviously try to provide you the context on what's happening around this data. So what do we do? Obviously, I mentioned the next-gen AV. That's when we started with the prevention. Detection and response, that's the EDR. So you can detect attacks, you can respond to it. You can remediate, obviously. And here in the remediation part, I'll just mention one cool feature. On the one click, if there is a ransomware attack on your Windows machine, on the one click, you can roll back the machine to the state before it was encrypted. It's something it's patented by SentinelOne. We don't see that with the other vendors. Again, if you want to see it, we're happy to show you the demo and maybe even provide a POC where you can test it yourself. So imagine you have a ransomware attack for 1,000 machines. Usually the customers, they need to take the machine, they need to reinstall the operating system, which obviously is taking a lot of time, a couple of weeks probably until you get back all your users up and running. With us, you can do it from the console with a couple of clicks. Network visibility, again, we are the endpoint vendor, but our endpoint can basically see on what other machines in the network it's talking to. We can provide you the information. What are these other third-party tools, printers, cameras, whatever. And if there is an operating system that is supported, you can do the agent rollout. And at the end, we want to automate everything through the XDR. In terms of supporting operating system, you see the usual suspects here. We have the same feature parity in most of the OSs. So whether you're talking about a Windows, Mac OS, Linux, Kubernetes, or the public cloud providers, it's the same agent. It's one agent with the I would say most of them on the same parity feature level. So what is the storyline? I was talking that we gather a lot of telemetry data from the endpoints. This data doesn't mean that there is an incident. We're just collecting different events, different data, but obviously sometimes these different events can mean later on that the attacker has tried to, or he was preparing for an attack, and basically the attack started from some point. Using the storyline, it's a visibility of your attack, where you can again go back and put your machine into the state before it was attacked. We map those storylines with the MITRE techniques. So again, in the console, you see fully what has happened, what time, when, and you can respond to that and remediate. So what's happening on the endpoint side? I was saying we are autonomous. Autonomous means we're not dependent on the cloud. So all this, I would say, magic happens on the agent itself without needed to be connected to the internet. So the real-time prevention and the remediation can be done on the agent itself. If you want to use the EDR, for us the EDR is called the deep visibility. It means you want to do the threat hunting, you want to look into your logs, you want to go back, you want to map these attacks to the MITRE techniques. This is when we leverage the cloud. So we send this metadata to the platform which we host in the AWS, and there you can do all this magic. So again, we're not cloud dependent, we're just leveraging the cloud for more functionality. So what are the possible deployments? There are three. First one is you can do a fully SaaS-based solution, cloud-based management, agents talking to the cloud management. Second one, you have the agents on-prem and you have the cloud management. Not cloud management. You have on-prem management. So it's a fully on-prem solution. There you obviously miss this deep visibility. And the third one, you use the on-prem or the hybrid solution, which is the hybrid means you use the on-prem management and you send the data to this deep visibility, which is hosted in AWS. So we can address all three different scenarios in terms of the deployment. So why? We think where are the benefits? And again, there was a testament from one of the customers, like I literally 1 hour ago here in this room, he said, we choose SentinelOne really because when you claimed you have a lightweight agent, so it doesn't consume a huge amount of CPU and memory, you really delivered comparing to the others who also claim it, and then it's very heavy on the machine. We have a fully multi-tenancy platform, so if you have multiple organizations, multiple companies even within your holdings, you can do it from one console, which is a fully multi-tenant. And again, visibility part I mentioned, you can't stop what you don't see, so we do have the full visibility in terms of the attack lifecycle. So how we differentiate from the others? I think this endpoint market is very crowded, right? I talk about legacy vendors, there are new vendors, and again, it's probably hard to think, okay, why SentinelOne? I mean, it's just like another vendor maybe out of the market. Well, I don't think it's true. All of them have different approach, and to be honest, what I see, and maybe you are one of those users because I see Symantec is very, very present here in Hungary specifically. They are the vendors that designed this AV world many years back. They are still doing that. I don't want to judge it if it still works or not, but I do believe they have a legacy technology which sometimes cannot really scale. There are new kids on the block, same as us. Some of them, I'm sure everybody knows Microsoft. Microsoft is trying to be very active on this endpoint security. Again, we see them a lot. They try to bundle their endpoint security with the different solutions. It's something that might work. We also see CrowdStrike, not again that much in Hungary or in Eastern Europe, but also CrowdStrike is providing some level of endpoint security which is really based on the people. So there is an incident, there are people who are calling you and helping you to fix it. Is it good? Is it bad? It can work. You have some human approach. On the other side, it can mean there is a delay. And obviously, we are trying, as I mentioned in the beginning, our vision is we can automate, or we're trying to automate as much as possible. So at the end, you only see what is relevant. And in most of the cases, the technology should stop things that are not relevant, or basically you shouldn't see any or a very low number of false positives. So what the others think of us, I mean, I don't really like Gartner, to be honest. Every vendor has their Gartner, right? So this is the Gartner for endpoint security. from last year. So it was published now in March. It's dated until end of December. But on the slide, you can see October 2022. So to be honest, I don't know what date is relevant, but it was published in March. There are a couple of vendors that I was talking about in the leaders quadrant, which is also obviously SentinelOne. What I think is more interesting is this Gartner critical capabilities. So together with the Gartner, they also publish a report that is saying there are 3 different types of organizations, like a big one, which is lean, then there are some prevention-focused blended approach, and those organizations are different size, different types, and they measure which vendors are, or how critical they are for those organizations. So how well you can deploy different solutions in those organizations. We have scored the highest amongst all these vendors in this Magic Quadrant. So again, I'm happy to share with you the details of this report, which means is basically we can address different sizes of the customers with SentinelOne. So we're not only for these big enterprises, 100,000, we're not only for SMB, for 50 people organization, we can address the whole scale. What is more important, what I like to talk more about is MITRE. As you know, maybe some of you, MITRE is a non-government organization in the US, and they test many vendors, not only cybersecurity, aerospace industry, many other industries. Every year, they test endpoint vendors, and they take usually 2 different campaigns. And out of those 2 campaigns, it's 2 days of heavy testing. They run those campaigns on the solution out of the box. Then they measure the results, different categories. Then they call the vendors. They said, okay, you can fine-tune, configure your solution, and then run the test again. And they again measure the results. So if you look on the last year, so we are expecting the new MITRE every day, maybe this week, maybe next week. But this is the last year testing. We have the highest detections. So if you see, there were 19 steps of this attack, and there were 109 sub-steps. We could detect all the major steps, and out of 108 out of the 109 sub-steps. How the others scored, you can see the other vendors, as I mentioned. First is testing it out of the box. Second thing, you have an opportunity to make a configuration change. So the blue part means how the other vendors did the configuration changes. Once you do the changes, you can still see how many steps of these campaigns different vendors have been able to detect. So again, I think this is more about the security part, not the marketing, maybe sometimes like the Gartner is, but about really how well the solution works, even out of the box or with some human interaction. So for example, I was mentioning CrowdStrike, which has a pretty big delays because again, you need to respond to some people. This is the same results a year before, so 2021. So MITRE, as I mentioned, they publish it every year. 2021, they published the MITRE. We even scored a bit better. You see our typical competitors and usual suspects here, how they scored. So what does it mean? I mentioned a couple of times autonomy, automation part, and the simplicity. Simplicity means that after these 2 days of tests, you see in our console 9 different incidents. So that was the result of the test. So basically the guys who are managing that needs to go to the console, and there are 9 incidents they need to take care of. This is how other vendors use for MITRE different, I would say, products. You can see they can do similar things, but it means you have to use multiple agents or multiple management consoles. For us, again, it's a 1 agent here for Linux, 1 for Windows, and 1 management. So last part that I want to spend a little bit is about the identity piece. I was talking about the endpoints, how relevant they are, why we think there is a EDR and XDR in the market, but I think identity is super important, and you will see most of endpoint vendors will this year talk a lot about identity. There will be a lot of acquisitions in this space. Why? Most of the attacks are caused because of identity, I would say, breach. So someone is basically taking a password of the admin, and then he just logs in, right? He doesn't have to really hack the system. He just logs in, and he's there. So the identity piece is super important, and I think every vendor has to have some kind of answer to those type of attacks. So I was talking, what do we secure? If we talk about identity, we're talking about the 3 different use cases. We're talking about the preventing your Active Directory infrastructure. which is the attack surface management. We're talking about deception, so I'll spend a little bit more time on what the deception means, and then how you can respond to these identity-based attacks. So to make it short, and I don't want to spend too much time of going into the details, but there are 3 different things we do with the identity. First one is we're trying to assess your Active Directory infrastructure. We're trying to scan your AD environment. We're trying to see how vulnerable it is. We're trying to see what are the misconfigurations in your AD, and we do that on a constantly repeated basis. So we provide you kind of audit trail where you can see what is happening in your AD infrastructure. It can be on-prem, it can be on Azure AD, we don't care. Second thing is deception piece, which is split it into the two parts. So deception means it's a post-breach technology. So just imagine there is a breach, the hacker have been able to bypass the firewall, the endpoint, all the different parts of the different cool tools in the cybersecurity, and now they basically are trying to enter finally the system they're aiming for, or the endpoint, or the user. We're trying to provide decoys in your network, so kind of a traps or decoys, and we're trying to lure the attacker. We're trying to tell the attacker, go here, do the action you want to, and if we do, we give him an information that he's inside your application server, he's inside the CO laptop, he get the admin privilege access users. All these things are happening in kind of a fake environment, and it can happen either on your network or it can happen on your endpoint. So this is what we call deception. If you see there is an attacker in that type of environment, he's inside, it means you have a serious attack. I would say there is no false positive if you see in this type of attack. So this deception piece, as I said, we can do it on the network, we can do it on the endpoint. The endpoint part of deception will be fully integrated with our agent. So the agent itself will have capabilities to also action as another decoy in the network. So right now it's a separate, obvious solution as it came from acquisition, but it will be fully integrated again, one agent, one platform. So a few things, where we are, how we operate. In Eastern Europe, we have a big R&D center in Prague. Now it's 200 people. It will be 300 people by end of the year. There was no 1.5 years ago. So this will be the biggest R&D center globally. We have a couple of people from Hungary there as well. So if you know some cool guys and smart guys, either in the information security or developers, let me know. We can hook them up. And they can be based here also in Hungary. We have a big team in Poland for the MDR team, vigilance. So these are the guys that are handling the incidents. And obviously, as I said, probably in the beginning, we are the US-based company, so it's headquartered in the US. There are some numbers which I will not bother you with. It's too late in the afternoon, but we have a tremendous growth in the last, especially 2 years, and we keep growing, and we want to grow also in Hungary as we're sort of starting here. I will finish with the kind of cliche, probably sentence, customers are number one. As I told you, I've been through different vendors. I can tell you that we really want to make every implementation super successful. We put a lot of effort, a lot of people behind it. We obviously work with our channel partners. So we do have some partners already in Hungary who have an experience with our technology, and we will be always able here to tell you or to help you to make the project successful. These are a few names that we sold in the last 12 months, pretty much. This is mainly in Eastern Europe. You don't see any logo here from Hungary, but some of them are also present here in Hungary. And the best way how to verify what I was telling about is to start a POC, to start a free trial. We want to fight on the technology level. I do think we are able to convince you if you do a POC through different vendors that the SentinelOne would be the right tool for your cybersecurity. So thank you very much. And I think it's the coffee break time. Thank you.